So it just remains for me to introduce Jenny and hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Kay. So, there are two of us standing here, not just one of us, although I was on the billing. So I'm Jenny Kinnaird. I am the Deputy Head of Area Offices for the Rural Payments and Inspections Division, or ARPID as it backroom is. And I'm here because Barbara Bucket, who just typed out the back, asked if I would come and speak. And I did wonder why me. Right place, right time, or wrong place, right time. But the theme is balance is better and actions speak louder than words. So the balance to today is...
Hi, I'm Grace Munro-Henworth. I'm normally an agricultural officer in the Gallon Shields office, but I'm currently on a development opportunity with Jenny. And I never suspected that I would be involved in speaking today, so please bear with me.
So I hope you see we've demonstrated good civil service values, 2 for the price of 1. And at the end, I hope that you consider it to be value for money. Here we go. So it's International Women's Day this week, and there are events on all week. And as I suspected, there is not a balance in this audience today, but it doesn't actually make it much easier for me to speak, because I am far more used to speaking to completely male, or at least male-dominated audiences. I grew up in a male-dominated environment. I am a farmer's daughter. I think that is my natural state, not skirt and shirt. But having said that, I grew up in the least male-dominated farm in East Lothian in the 80s. My dad, you see, has never shied away from doing what he considers to be the right thing. And in the 80s, taking on a Scottish Agricultural College student was the right thing, and in his case, he took on a female student. And that was absolute shock horror. He got many, many comments from neighbouring farms and friends because we had taken on a female student, because that was unheard of at that stage. But he proved himself to be right, because many years later he headhunted her back to come and work for us because she had talent. And one of the most influential people out with my immediate family, although I didn't see it at the time, was another farmer's daughter who was fun, intelligent, witty and female.
Similarly to Jenny, I've been brought up in a male-dominated and agricultural environment. I have 3 brothers and an extended family of young farmers comprising of 17 males and 2 females, including myself. This is me in my natural state. Although I fully agree with Jenny that there is a gender imbalance within the workplace, I do believe that my generation has been blessed with an awareness of the problem and a growing movement to confront and tackle this issue. The picture on the right isn't in the UK, as you can tell. So I've been fortunate enough to spend a fair amount of time travelling, and I worked in New Zealand for 2 years. And this was what happens when you accidentally leave a gate open. And one thing that hit me about working over in New Zealand is that there's a greater balance between female and male workers in the agricultural industry, not just on farm, but as a whole. And generally speaking, I believe it's a cultural mindset that this is from. And this is from the mentality, and as well in part because of the small population. And as well, there was a change in how farms worked with the loss of subsidies in the 1980s. And in my experience, sex, race, colour or creed were never taken into consideration. As long as you were able to do the job and had the right attitude, that's all that mattered. And this experience has made me realise that in order to combat gender equality, there has to be a fundamental cultural change to mindset.
So, where did my career start? And if you like, my career started when I went to uni and I came to Aberdeen, and I got a BSc in Countryside Environmental Management. I worked at home during the holidays, and I went home and worked for Harvest while I tried to get a proper job, and I went for a few interviews. I tried to get a direct entry higher agricultural officer's job with the department, as we are known. and I didn't get an interview, and out of spite I almost didn't apply for a E1 agricultural officer's job. But I did, and I got one of 7 jobs on offer at the time, and I started as an agricultural officer at Inverary at Kingston Court on the 23rd of March 1998. I was one of 2 female higher agricultural officers. There was only one already in the office when I started, and there was 1 female higher agricultural officer. The 40 other professional and technical staff were men. In complete and utter contrast to the administrative side, where out of 20 members of staff, 1 was male. But if you consider that in the whole of the division, so the whole of the country, the female HEO who was in that office was one of only 2 in the entire country. So 2 B2s in the entirety of all the admin area offices in 1998.
So my career started when I joined the Gallup Shields office in 2017, 3 days after finishing my undergraduate degrees. And the office is made up of 32 members of professional and technical staff. Overall, there's an equal split between men and females. However, management is male dominated. With 15 female agricultural officers and 8 male, and then the 9 other managers are all male, apart from 1 female member of staff. Initially, it wasn't apparent to me that the management was male dominated in my area office. But I think this is partially because I've been used to working in mainly male environments. But however, during my time on my TRS with Jenny, I've had the opportunity to travel across to multiple different area offices. And it's noticeable to me that there is a more even split in other offices. So it's shown to me that from Jenny starting her career in the department to me starting mine, I can see that there's been significant movements in the right direction. However, I still feel there's a way to go to reach a female-male equilibrium within the management teams.
The slide that's there, you're not supposed to be able to read all the names, by the way, in case you're thinking it. The slide there just shows that basically the top there is the principal in an office, and then you have basically a split that is the B3s. And then the B2s is the 3rd line down, and then everything else under there is the B1s. So it just shows you the makeup of an office, and that will make a bit more sense as I go through just to say what my career was. So if I've come from a male-dominated environment in the agricultural industry, and I came into an environment where there were very few females on the professional and technical side, did I experience discrimination? Yes, but not from colleagues. So I have had comments over the years about being a female in our world as a disadvantage. I did have a male colleague say that he was quite unsettled by having a female manager. However, I turned out to be alright, which was quite high praise. But actually, the bit of discrimination, if you like, that sticks in my head was when I was an agricultural officer. I went to the front counter to talk to an elderly gentleman. Gave him the answers to the questions that he asked me about the scheme, but he wasn't really taking what I was saying on board, and he asked to speak to somebody else. So I duly went along the corridor and got Frank, who was the duty HO of the day, and he spoke to the gentleman and he told him exactly the same as I told him, and the guy said thank you very much, got up and walked out of the office quite happy. And I ranted all the way up the corridor back to my desk about, he chose to say the same as I did. You didn't tell me anything any different. Why is he really happy now? And Frank turned around and said, Jenny, he is not used to being told professional and technical information from a female agricultural officer. It's his generation, it's not yours. And he's right. But I still remember it 20 years later. But I enjoyed being an agricultural officer. I learned a lot. It was my first job out of college, like Grace. I went on social dues, I played football, I played badminton, I enjoyed my time, and I then got promotion to HO in September 1999. I didn't hang around for very long, and I went off to the Perth area office. Now I never noticed that in Perth I was the only female manager in the P&T side until 2003. And we merged Dundee, Stirling and Perth offices together, and we had a preemptive management meeting. And there were 16 managers in the room and I was the only female. And one of my colleagues And I looked at my face and said, "You're right." And I'm perfectly fine. I'm just noticing for the first time that I'm the only female in the room. And he said, "Does it bother you?" And I said, "No, no, no, not at all." I had also clocked the fact that I was the youngest significantly. Did that bother me? No, it was just something that I noted on the way past, if you like, and it certainly didn't stop me speaking. But I continued to be involved in agriculture, and I still helped out at home. This shows you something as well. So some of you in this audience may recognise somebody in that photo that is not me, who's also a C-band member of staff in the Scottish Government, although not with ARPID anymore. You want to stand up, Fiona?
Glasses on there.
So Fiona there used to work with me at the Perth office, and she got roped into holding one of the sheep in the Royal Highland show in 2000, who you see there. And it's actually a complete family affair, because my brother is just in the shop holding another sheep that year as well. So I was an HO in Perth for 2003 to 1999 until 2005. And that was really the last time it struck me, because I moved on and I went to Ayr as a BG Senior Agricultural Officer. I came back to Thingston in 2009 as the principal. The previous diagram you saw, that was me head of that office. And I now, both of those, I was the second female. And Ray, who was the HO when I started in Thingston, was the first female SEO and the first female principal. Lots of people mix that up because they think I was the first principal. And that's because Anne's left the organisation. People come in and have only ever seen me at C-band level. And now I line manage half the country. I'm responsible for the resourcing to make sure that we deliver our part of £600 million a year. I'm responsible for health and safety for our staff, and I am also the champion for mental health and well-being for our part of the division. There is a consequence to that. This was what I used to get to have as my office view every so often. This is what my office is like now. But I see people come in, I see people come in from other parts of office government, and they do see the imbalance in the meetings that I attend. I don't notice it because it's normal for me, but they see it. What I notice now is that the uniform that you get in young farmers, which is boots, jeans and rugby shirt, has only just morphed. So it's now shoes, trousers and a check shirt for every single man in the room. And I, on the rebel, because I wear a striped shirt. But that's not to say that I don't want it to change. I absolutely do want it to change. I don't think it should be noticeable that you're female and in a certain position within government. There should be a number of people for Barbara to tap on the shoulder and ask if we would speak at this kind of event in ARPID. One thing that we do have in ARPID is, I've talked about the professional and technical. So we have people that come through the ranks. I'm the first female that's come through the ranks, rather than coming from another part of government. And that's actually important to our staff. I've had quite a lot of positive comments from people about the fact that I've worked my way through the ranks rather than coming in from another part of government to any part of the structure. But having said that, what is the likelihood of the balance getting better within ARPID?
Well, within ARPID area offices, we are now in a situation where overall we have established a better balance in comparison to the agricultural industry as a whole. However, there is still work to be done in order to catch up with the rest of Scottish Government, especially at C-band and above. So the question is, how do we get there, and what can we learn from departments and other people?
So I don't like the idea of quotas, and people do talk about quotas on boards, etc., in terms of the female makeup of boards. That's a personal point of view. It's not one that everyone shares. But I would rather have a position on merit, not because I'm female. For me, it's not about the gender of the person, it's about the person themselves. And I actually think having quotas could be potentially more damaging than it is good. And that's based on anecdotal information, and that's based on speaking to friends who work in the oil and gas sector in the city, and some of what happens in that sector. I think we're actually quite protected in the civil service because we don't have that kind of quota system and that kind of I do like the idea of mentoring, and it's good you said earlier that that's part of what this network does. Mentoring was one of the recommendations from the 2017 research into women in agriculture about boosting females' confidence to be able to go forward for positions where they may not have confidence just now. So does that an issue for me? Probably not. But I think that's because throughout my career I have invested in myself consistently. And not because I was looking for progression, but because I wanted to be as good as I possibly could be at the job that I was doing. So despite what many people think, I don't think I'm ambitious. I never have had a career plan, and I don't have one now either. I have just gone along looking at what I was doing, what I think I needed to be better at the job at the time. And in doing that, I have learned a lot about myself. And that's one thing I would say to you. Knowing yourself and your own strengths and weaknesses, the foibles that you have, is the best tool that you can possibly have. Now, I've tested that knowledge. I've not just made an assumption that I know it myself. I've tested that knowledge with other people as well. And it's a really, really powerful tool if you use it correctly. And I've had opportunities in my career. Opportunities that I think I've got because someone's seen some talent in me, not because I'm female. I certainly prefer to think it's because someone's seen some talent. So what do I mean? So when I was a higher agricultural officer at B2, I was part of the then Chief Agricultural Officer's HEO group, as it was referred to. And we did pilot studies, we did policy pilot, we went out and did a precursor to a scheme called Land Managers Options. And we went to the senior managers meeting, so we presented our findings there, and we talked to public audiences about CAP reform. As a P3, I was asked to train agents and stakeholders on a specific scheme called Rural Priorities that we ran. And as a C1, I did two things. One, I did a business change side of what we called Futures, which was a change program. And then I also led ARPA through part of what I would call the payments crisis that we went through a few years ago, which I'm sure most of you are aware of. But now I formally get to give something back. So I get to encourage the next generation of people coming to the organisation. Rather, this time than being saying to someone, we'll take you on this group, this time round people are putting themselves forward for this, which is a good step forward, I think.
So, Gregor Caldwell and Jenny are running an initiative called Strong Dance Foundations, which is the above. Most of the applicants were female, and all of the successful candidates to date are female. That's what I'm doing currently. And although we're in the early stages, the signs are that the current situation at B3 and C band in ARPID will improve itself through the development of talent, and it will catch up with what our wider Scottish Government plans. There are endless resources available for people to use to help tackle the gender issue within one's own career. And one of my favourites being Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg, which is Women, Work and the Will to Lead. And I strongly recommend everybody should pick up either a copy of this or something similar. Because similar to my own belief, Sheryl highlights the importance that no matter who you are, gender or otherwise, it's about supporting and encouraging each other to be the best possible version of ourselves in the workplace, and then the workplace itself being the best possible place to be.
So, I believe that if you balance drive, empathy, analysis and motivation within a team, And regardless of gender, that's the absolute best performance that you'll get from a team. If you see the person, their talents and their quirks, because we all have them, you can develop them, but a lot of it does come from that individual. Networks like this, I think, have a big place in that. Everyone is looking for equality, and sorry if you don't like this, but in my opinion, us females can be the harshest judges of each other. But actually, we are much, much stronger if we work together. And I also believe that the power of these networks involves showing the influence that you can have by widening it. And I'm actually encouraged by the number of men that are in the room today, because you can't show the power of the collective unless you let other people see it. I always like to leave that in the audience. So, finally, can I ask you to raise your hands if you're married? Okay, thank you. Of females that raised their hands just now, are you aware that in a bygone era, you would not be working in the civil service? Yeah, because many years ago, married females were not allowed to work in the civil service. So whichever way you look at it, how times have changed, and absolutely for the better, and long may that continue. So absolutely balance is better, and thank you very much.
Time for a couple of questions. Somebody would like to start first? Do you want to take it off? Hello. Is it on?
Great. Hello. Thank you very much for that. It was a brilliant talk. From hearing about your career passage, it sounds like you've dotted around quite a lot. You've gone from Irvine to Paris and you've been to Ayr. Do you think that it could have been possible for you to have progressed to where you are now without having had to relocate so often with your work?
Yes, so there's also someone sitting in the audience that can attest to that. She knew I was going to do that. So Marianne has gone from B1 through to B3 in the same location, and there will be a C1 post there if she wishes to go for it in the next few months, because that's one that I've indicated. So it is possible, but the consequence is that it would take much longer because you are waiting for those positions to come up, whereas people who have moved across the country tend to be able to go quicker.
Thank you.
Do you think that a lot of women, when they have families, want to go part-time, and then quite often management position is open to full-time staff? Do you think that's an inhibitor to people to get into the higher levels of
It's an interesting question, and I don't really know the answer to it, because if you look at the people, so Anne Ray that I talked about, she got to being a C1 and she had a wee boy, and then she came back part-time and she decided enough was enough and she wanted to spend more time with him. But then I look at our director who has kids, and our director has kids, and our deputy director is supposed to work part-time, and I've not seen much evidence of it. And there are plenty of people coming through now at PG level who work part-time, they have kids, etc. So I don't see that it's a barrier, but I would be wrong to say that without acknowledging the fact I don't. But my life is, I describe as being child-free, not childless. But I don't, so I can't really make an informed comment because I've not been through that.
I wanted to pick up on that, and I think it relates to the quote that you put up from Sheryl Sandberg about perpetuating the status quo. And I think there's huge discussions about structural issues that don't allow us to have a balanced world, whether that's gender balance or any other kind of balance. And this sort of work-life balance is a huge part of that, in that work is still seen as 9 to 5, for those who work long hours tend to get on or have got on in the past, and there's big issues around that.
I'm not sure that we do that. So I don't work 9 to 5. I use flexi time depending on what I need to do on the day. Grace got up, left at 20 past 5 this morning to come up from Gala. She'll not be working till 5 o'clock. Glad to hear it. But so yeah, it's still a massive part of people's lives. But I think the balance is better than it has been previously, because most of us can use flexi time to basically make some use of that and do other stuff outside work. So I think it is better. What I can't comment on is the part-time bit, because I'm not sure how good we actually are at adjusting people's workloads to say, to acknowledge that they're working 4 days a week and not 5 days a week. But you have to ask people that are working 4 days a week whether or not their workloads have been adjusted enough.
Right, I think we're going to have to move on. Thank you very much, Jenny and Grace. We're now going to hear from some of our Marine Scotland staff. First up is Craig, who's on VC from Pitlochry. If someone can make the technology work.
We'll see if technology will work for us being all in different offices. So hopefully you can see it up on the screen just now. Yeah, okay. Right, so I'm Faye Jackson. I am a data analyst in the Environment Group in the Salmon and Freshwater Fisheries Programme. I describe myself as relatively early career. I completed my undergraduate degree in 2012 at the University of Birmingham, and that was in physical geography. During this time, I became particularly interested in research. I spent 6 weeks out in the French Pyrenees, looking at how different water source contributions, so basic or groundwater, affects the thermal regime and how that affects aquatic habitats, particularly under climate change. After this, I was kind of interested in doing research that also had benefits in the real world, so outside of like the academic sphere. So I went off and did an MSc at the University of Leeds in hydrology, but this was kind of split between applied kind of policy management skills, but then also kind of fundamental research and processes. Again, managed to squeeze in some pretty cool fieldwork, this time out in the Alps, where I looked at temperature dependence of in-stream sediment respiration. And during this, I was kind of keeping an eye on both the jobs market and on the kind of research side of things. Spotted a PhD back with my supervisor in Birmingham and with the Freshwater Lab here as a case partner. And I think for me, this was the first time that I really realised that you could do genuinely world-leading, cutting-edge research and not be based at a university. And that you could also then be working in an environment where you could genuinely affect policy and management and affect the way in which we're managing our freshwater environments. And that was kind of really exciting for me. So in 2013, I moved up to the lab to begin all of the design and deployment of the Scotland River Temperature Monitoring Network. And the idea was that I was going to be at the Freshwater Lab for a year whilst we were doing that, and I was then going to go back to Birmingham for the write-up stages of my PhD. Anybody that knows me knows that I never left. Completely fell in love with Pitlochry. Really enjoyed working in the Freshwater Lab and being part of that very much a team culture. Learned a huge amount from my colleagues here, but also from wider across Marine Scotland and across the fisheries sector. I was really disappointed to be leaving come the end of my PhD, but as luck would have it, a few months before I was finishing up, there were several jobs that were being advertised here at the Freshwater Fisheries Lab, one of which I applied for and was absolutely delighted to get it. So in June 2017, I became an official member of the Environment Group, although I always felt an official member of the team even before then. I now work more on the data analysis and reporting side of things, but I do get to go out on field work occasionally. So the picture you can see at the top is me going electrofishing for the first time, which is very cool. Still working on the temperature network side of things, but now also moving into kind of analysing fisheries data, and continuing to learn a huge amount and really enjoying what I'm doing, and hopefully it'll be a long and successful career to come, and That should be my 3 minutes up, and the technology seems to have worked as well.
Next up, we have Linda Blackadder.
Thank you. Okay. Good morning, and thank you very much for asking me to talk to the fantastic event we've organised here today. I was given the working title, Balance for Better, and I think I've always known that balance and core strength are very important attributes for any potential career. And that's because I wanted to be a dancer when I was younger, like lots of young girls. Today I'm going to tell you why the dancing didn't happen and how I got to where I am now. And how hopefully I think I'm quite balanced in the grand scheme of things. Some of you in this room might disagree. And I guess when we all started at school, if I'm honest, I really enjoyed school and I didn't find it too much of a challenge.
Sorry to interrupt, Linda, but we can't hear you at all in Pitlochry.
I can't hear you from here either.
Oh, great.
Is that better? Is that close enough?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, we can hear you now, that's great.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
So yeah, high school is where it all started for me. I should clarify, by high school I wasn't dancing anymore. I have hypermobility, I have joint problems, and I'd had to have a spinal fusion when I was 15, so the dancing career was put on hold. It's also an important age because at 15 we were making our career choices, and I'd missed a considerable amount of school. I still enjoyed the sciences, and I was intending on a career in marine biology or forensic science. You can imagine my disappointment and dismay when my guidance teacher at the time told me that that wasn't going to be possible and that a more desk-based job would suit me much better. I know many of you in this room, you know me, I can be quite stubborn. I hate to be told no, especially if people can't fully justify that. So in truth, that one conversation changed my career path and my thinking to that point. It made me much more focused and determined to prove people wrong and to show them I could do anything that I wanted. So as soon as I was fitting well, which was 12 months after having the surgery, I started learning to scuba dive and I set my sights on university. I studied marine biology at Aberdeen University where I got my honours, and I stayed on at Aberdeen because I was successful in obtaining full funding to do a Masters of Research. I then came to the lab as part of my project. What I should say is that throughout all of this I worked part-time. I started working when I was 13, and all through university and starting my project I was still working in retail. And I think that this is something that's sometimes overlooked, and I always highlight this when I go to careers fairs or talking to kids, because actually these non-academic skills that I learned from working have been really invaluable in my career so far, and I think that sometimes they can be overlooked. So my master's project was here at the lab with the gear section. I was given my first opportunity to work on Scotia, so we're talking about a different type of balance. It's quite hard staying upright and a force 10 when you're out at Rockall. They obviously saw a spark in me because I did my first trip away and then I was invited back twice more. I wasn't paid for this, I was paid only in food and beer. But I really enjoyed that time and I learned an awful lot. But I wanted in the door officially, and the truth is that I had bills to pay and I needed some money. It should be mic'd up. Thankfully, I was introduced to an A4 temporary position became available as a fisheries assistant in the inshore fisheries group. So I was still working at retail at this point, and I had been offered a job on a fast-track retail management course, and the money on offer was substantially more than the A4 14,000 that I started on. My friends thought I was mad. They wanted me to take the money. But my family and my close friends supported me, and I always knew that I would regret it if I didn't take this opportunity and at least give it a shot. So I started here at the lab as an A4 in January 2007,
and my career has progressed, and I was very recently successful at obtaining a B3 post. It's not been easy, and in these few minutes I can only give you a brief overview of my career path to date. I have constantly applied myself, I've pushed myself to learn more, gain new skills, but the truth is actually that none of this would have been possible without my two unofficial mentors. Helen Dobby and Anne Clay have both been my line managers and group leaders at some point, and they obviously saw a spark in that young A4. They've constantly encouraged me, and I really wouldn't be where I am now without their support, guidance and wisdom. So 5 years ago there was a massive shift in the balance. I did get married and I had kids, and this has been my biggest challenge to date. I took time off to have children, but I came back to work full time after having them both. Was it easy then? No. Is it easy now? No. Could things have been done differently? Most definitely. And that's why I'm really keen to work with the Women's Equality Network and the Athena Swan Charter to make positive improvements for working mums. I'm sure the past few minutes might have made it look easy, and it's not been easy. There's been people along the way that want to knock you down, to make things difficult, to question why you're in that position. I think the attitudes are changing, but I've become very aware that there are just some really horrible people out there. So my message is try to surround yourself with positive people who support you, make positive changes in your own life so that you can be resilient, healthy, and hopefully as balanced as can be. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Linda. We're very glad you made that career choice. Now we're welcoming Eileen Bresnan.
I'm Eileen Bresnan. I run the Phytoplankton Ecology group here in the Marine Lab. We're a small group of 4 people, very highly specialist, and we deliver a program of work to address statutory obligation and policy drivers in relation to phytoplankton and also non-native species. So my journey path starts here in the Natural History Museum in Dublin. My dad used to bring me here on a Sunday if it was raining because it was free to get in. And on my first day of school, I told the teacher I wanted to be a zoologist when I grew up. So fast forward 13 years and I started studying zoology in UCD. And I followed this up with an MSc and a PhD, not because I was particularly academically driven, but I couldn't get a job. So between my MSc and PhD, I spent 8 months volunteering in Sherkin Island at the marine station there, and I was a member of the phytoplankton team. And the first time I looked down the microscope, I was just blown away by phytoplankton, and I've been a phytoplankton enthusiast ever since. So when I finished my PhD, I was really lucky to get a job running the toxic phytoplankton monitoring program here in the Marine Lab. We also had quite a healthy research budget at the time as well. And it was quite early on in those days I had what I still considered to be quite a formative experience when I did a 2-week training course in Copenhagen. And to this day, I really try and run my group and working groups in the spirit and manner of the Botanic Institute there, because they were a really inspirational group of people. After a few years, I became group leader, and in the spirit of balance, I think we were the only all-female group in the lab for a number of years, until about 5 years ago when our diversity increased and we welcomed Pablo to the group. In 2005, I managed the group to a period of big change because the lab decided it would take a step back from the Shellfish Hygiene Directive work. So we had to reinvent ourselves, reinvent our roles. And I think if you're clever in how you read the landscape when you're doing this, you can really see the possibilities for opportunities. We decided to focus more on work relating to environmental status assessments because this is where the EU drivers were. And this was a real benefit in the long term, because now this is the main driver, main focus for the work of the group, and the Marine Lab is in a place where it can really make a valuable contribution on a national and international scale to this area. We've also managed to do some science along the way, so we've kept everybody happy in the meantime. And I was regraded to B3 around 2007 on the back of all this work. And national and international representation's been a part of my job since the beginning, and this has really been a big opportunity for me, both in exposing yourself to many fantastic people who attend these groups, but also challenging your scientific ideals and opening up leadership opportunities. I'm currently in my second term as elected chair of the IC's working group on harmful algal bloom dynamics. At the moment, I'm trying to herd them like a group of cats to produce an important report that we're going to submit to UNESCO for a global assessment of harmful algal blooms. But it's opportunities like these that contributed to me being graded to C1 last year. I've had a lot of support from many people during the years, but like Linda, I was also fortunate enough to be line managed by Ahmed Faye, and I really cannot thank her highly enough, because I really learned an awful lot from her on how to manage people and how to manage in difficult times. And also, I really have to attribute the fact that I'm here at this grade to the two people in the picture below. This is Pat Tester from NOAA in the USA and Beatriz Reguera from Vigo in Spain, who are part of my IC's working group, and they are really, really nurturing to female scientists when they appear first at these working groups, really opening up doors to give them new opportunities and support them when they do it, and they're still at it. Beatriz managed to convince me last year to do something I would never have done in a month of Sundays. And Pat, even though she's retired, I still get emails off her asking how my 5-year career plan is going, which, a bit like Jenny, I've never had one, so I always have to make that reply up. But just before I finish, I really have to acknowledge the people that I work with as well. A lot of my work at the moment is involved in coordinating the Scottish Coastal Observatory. It's one of the UK's prime coastal ecosystem monitoring programmes. And I'm really amazed when I see it involves a large amount of people from different grades, from different groups, from different programs. And I'm really amazed when I see the leadership and management skills that everybody puts into this program when we have to deliver quite a difficult program of work in these resource-limited times. It's something that gives me great heart, and it's something that gives me motivation for the job I'm doing at the moment.
Thank you so much to all our speakers. I think it's been fantastic. All this morning we've heard about extreme dedication to the work and the enthusiasm and engagement with it, but also the support that you've had from your colleagues and mentors and contacts that you've made during your career. It's been great. Barbara, do we have career-wise? Thank you very much. As I said earlier, we've got Joanna here from CareerWise, who encourage women. And in Marine Scotland Science, we've worked with CareerWise over a number of years. We've had quite a few students and people here on placements, and the reports of their work and of the candidates that we've had have been absolutely excellent. So we're really pleased to be continuing that. So it's just over to Joanna now.
Hi, good morning. It's great to be here this morning at Marine Scotland Laboratory in Aberdeen. Thank you so much for inviting me along to your Balance for Better event today. As I said, my name is Joanna Glenfield and I'm a project officer at Equate Scotland. So Equate Scotland is Scotland's national expert for anything to do with gender equality in science, technology, engineering, maths and the built environment. For over 12 years, Equate Scotland's been supporting women and employers, universities and policy makers to change the landscape for women in STEM. So what is the landscape for women in STEM? So this slide demonstrates the low levels of women's participation across the STEM sectors. And you can see from high school through to college and university into the actual STEM workforce, women are significantly underrepresented. It's what we call the leaky pipeline effect, where at high school girls outperform boys substantially in STEM subjects, but due to gender stereotypes and unconscious bias, they just drop out the pipeline and they decline from their participation in STEM. and we lose women at different stages in the parts of the talent pipeline. And Equate Scotland works from colleges upwards, we don't work in primary schools. But in terms of women STEM students, Scottish universities now graduate large numbers of women in STEM. However, far fewer women than men study STEM subjects at undergraduate level, and overall only 26% of STEM students are actually female in Scotland. But even more shocking is out of that 26%, actually only 30% of those women go on and work in STEM industries. And this is the latest figures from the Tapping Talents Review that was done in 2018. And 6 years previously, that figure was 27%. So it's gone up 3% in the last 6 years, which is great. But it's still a 70% leak in the talent pipeline and a huge loss of STEM talent for Scotland compared to 50% men. So why is this an issue? Because by 2030, 42% of the working population will be over the age of 65. Women make up around half of the UK workforce, but are still significantly underrepresented in STEM. So only 26% of STEM students are female, and only 24% of STEM workforce are female. So, as I'm sure you know, STEM industries are vital to Scotland's economic success, and the majority of jobs in the future are going to require STEM skills. By 2020, the UK economy requires 830,000 professional scientists, engineers and technologists, and this works out at an additional 100,000 graduates required each year in STEM. There's a huge STEM skill shortage across the UK. We don't have enough graduates coming through university right now with the STEM skills to fill the jobs now, never mind the jobs in the future. And in order for Scotland to be globally competitive and the best that it can be, we need to harness all the available talent that we have. Women represent an untapped group of talent that's vital for economic development and for plugging the skills gap in STEM in Scotland. There's a huge opportunity to increase the participation of women in STEM across the board. So what does Equate Scotland do? Well, our work basically targets the leaks in the pipeline where women drop out. And we work across all the STEM sectors across 4 main areas. So we work with government to influence and shape policy, and with public body agencies to ensure that gender equality is considered centrally in the development of policy making, national skills programmes and labour market strategies. We work with industry and academia, various different organisations to help them attract, recruit and train women in STEM by providing training, advice and consultancy. So we provide training and advice and consultancy for companies in the areas of unconscious bias, creating gender neutral marketing materials, recruitment marketing materials, flexible working, training for mentors, establishing women networks, and we also support organisations to take positive action to increase the participation of women in STEM through things like Career Hub that Equate runs and Career Lines, which I'm here to tell you about today. And also we support women working in STEM. We help them get in, get on, get back and get to the top in STEM across these 4 areas. So for women like yourselves, we offer a range of free training and workshops, CPD development in areas like sticky floors and glass ceilings, our free-day career enhancement programme, which we're running in Aberdeen in the next few weeks, women on boards and assertiveness, and these women also have access to our Career Hub, which is a jobs board for STEM jobs in Scotland, where employers specifically want to advertise STEM jobs because they want to bring more women into their workforce, and we also offer internships through the job board. And for students, where my work sits, we run the Equate Student Network, which includes a student conference each year, and also CareerWise, which works with employers across the whole of Scotland to provide paid placements over the summer for girls studying STEM subjects at Scottish universities and colleges. So, the case for increasing the participation of women in STEM is clear and simple. Not only is it economically and socially the right thing to do, but diversity is good for business. Research makes it increasingly clear now that diverse companies are more successful and 15% more likely to financially outperform companies that are not, particularly if there's gender diversity in executive teams and in leadership roles. Companies, on average, with the highest number of women directors, on average, outperform those with the lowest by about 53%. Companies that are gender diverse have better customer orientation, so they understand their customer needs and expectations better. They make better decisions, they make products and services that suit the people that want to buy them. They have greater employee satisfaction because there's gender balanced teams. That means they're also able to attract top talent. And ultimately, a diverse workforce is a source of competitive advantage and a key enabler of growth. So what is CareerWise? So CareerWise is a paid internship scheme which exclusively targets women studying STEM subjects at Scottish universities and colleges. It's funded by Scottish Government, fully funded. It's the only internship scheme fully funded and fully endorsed by Scottish Government due to the impact that it's having on women's career destinations beyond graduation. CareerWise was launched in 2013, but we're now entering our 6 years of summer placements in summer 2019. Equate Scotland is hosted within Edinburgh Napier University, but we work across the whole of Scotland. We work with all universities and colleges. Now, the placements themselves are generally 8 to 12 weeks long or 6 months. They take place over the summer between June and August each year. They're all paid because paid placements attract the best talent, and they're all paid at least the real living wage, which is £9 per hour, and in most cases substantially more. And it must be a STEM role. But CareerWise, it's not just about the placement. We also do pre- and post-placement workshops with all the girls that go through the placements each year. The pre-placement workshop is about preparing them for going on placement, because for many of them it will be the first real job they've had that's relevant to the degree that they're studying for. To prepare them for going into the workplace, how to behave, how to add value, how to start building the network, all the things that are important for them. And then we do the placement, and then we come back and we do a post-placement workshop in September, where we're actually looking at what skills they've developed on placement and how we transfer that new learning and these employability skills onto their CVs so that they stand out to future employers. So why CareerWise? Well, given the actual stats and the data and the low participation of women in STEM and the fact there is a massive STEM skills shortage, research shows that women who undertake placements during their studies are more likely to go on and pursue a STEM career. And research also shows that high quality placements combined with good careers advice and support, which we give them through the pre and post placement workshops, makes it not only more likely they'll win to STEM, but they'll stay in STEM careers. So through CareerWise, the main purpose is to give women access to STEM industry via the work placements, to increase women's awareness of the various STEM occupations and the various career paths into these occupations, and also to increase their employability skills, the soft and the hard skills that recruiting employers desire. Everyone leaves university with a similar degree now. It's what they do in work experience that sets them apart, and they need to have the work experience to stand out. What the women report that have gone through CareerWise in the last 5 years, 90% of all women who've gone through say they're more intent on pursuing a STEM career as a direct result of their actual work placement. 95% said the placement has given them confidence in their career choice, confidence that they can do the job and they can succeed in a male-dominated environment. And 100% said their placement will make them stand out to employers to a great extent. So, CareerWise has been partnering with Marine Scotland since its conception in 2014 by giving paid work experience from students across Scotland at various universities. In the first 5 years, they've offered 10 placements in areas like GIS metadata, IT development, IT operations, and scientific modelling development. 8 women have filled those placements and had excellent placement experiences here at Marine Scotland. And this summer, a further 5 placements are being advertised for summer 2019, and they're in the middle of interviewing for those placements right now. So So this is just some of the information on the actual placements themselves, the type of work that the girls are doing. So this is just a few of them. So to create metadata sets for data sets that don't already have metadata, using discovery tools to discover hardware and software assets that Marine Scotland own, to design a new system to store data sets, to learn more about the use of CCTV in fisheries, and looking at how atmospheric forcing is represented in climatology runs of the Scottish Shelf model. Sounds very complicated. So, and this is some, I want to just take some quotes directly from the girls' feedback that they give us at the end of the year when they do their placements. So the top one, I'm more confident in my abilities and more confident in meeting and working with new people. The placement was excellent and allowed me to further develop my technical skills. I gained first-hand practical experience using GIS and got kept on for 6 months after my placement ended. The main highlight of my placement was meeting the New Zealand delegation and going out on a boat survey. And my placement was excellent, and I'm very confident it will help me stand out to future employers. The feedback from the students about their experience here in Marine Scotland is very positive, and 100% of the students have all rated their placements as excellent. Confidence is a key theme that runs through CareerWise. It's really giving the girls confidence that they can do the job and that they've made the right career choice, as is development of technical skills, and ultimately it is all about making them stand out to employers. And we've also had Julia recently came down to Edinburgh, and she's here today, and presented at a renewables event, a career path in renewables, where we had 40 students from various universities across Scotland informing them about the various career paths in the renewables energy sector. So career-wise, in the first 5 years, 140 women have gone through and completed placements. This has resulted in 11 graduate jobs, 2 paid extensions to current placements, 8 students invited back for a second year with their placement provider, 3 offered part-time job during their studies, so they get to work part-time doing their job once they go back to their degree, and 4 research papers have been produced or published. And from Marine Scotland, one of the girls who had paid extensions was here at Marine Scotland. We had another girl who was invited back for a month as a research scientist on the back of her placement, and 2 girls have been involved in papers that have been produced by work that you've done here at Marine Scotland. And a number of them have also been invited to apply for jobs here at Marine Scotland when they graduate. But CareerWise is truly having an impact on women's career destinations beyond their degrees. 60% of the girls that have gone through CareerWise in the first 3 years are now working in STEM roles and doing very, very well. I track their progression through LinkedIn so that in 10 years' time, when CareerWise doesn't exist, I can still look back and go, these girls are still in STEM, which is what it's all about. And this is double the amount of that 30% reported in tapping all our talent, so it's having a big impact on these girls' careers. In terms of Marine Scotland, the girls that have been here on placement, 2 of the girls are now working in STEM roles and doing really, really well. 2 went on to do further master degrees, and the remainder are all still currently sitting their undergraduate degrees and ready to graduate this year or next year. But in terms of CareerWise and gender in STEM, the business case for diversity and inclusion in STEM and the workforce is strong. In order to change the landscape for women in STEM and ensure that Scotland has the STEM labour skills that it requires for the future, employers need to take bold action. We need to do something different, because doing what we've always done isn't having any change. So for CareerWise, it's a method for organisations to create gender balance within their undergraduate workforce. It is essentially a recruitment strategy that companies can use to specifically target women in STEM. It's vital for building that early career pipeline, and it's essential to ensure positive STEM destinations for these young women. And I encourage all employers to be bold and invest in balance now, because diversity pays dividends. And that's me, thank you.
Thank you so much. We've maybe got time for one question. in the room? I wanted to ask, we saw Tapping All Our Talents, which was, the initial report was initiated by Anne Glover when she was Chief Scientific Advisor for Scotland, and now it's been updated last year, I think.
Yeah.
What differences have you seen in that time?
Me personally, just more girls. We're still at low numbers going through the degrees. It's still not enough. Latest figures produced last week as well have shown that girls are stepping away from tech again. So yeah, we have seen a big change. It's increased it from 27% to 30% over the last 6 years, and there's still loads of work to be done. But it takes all of us working together to make this bold difference, because it's all about Scotland and its economic prosperity, and STEM's vital to the success. So it's about working together and making sure that we have the STEM skills that we can attract inward investment and see the Scotland successful. So,
yeah, I think you've shown that it's an absolute no-brainer for society, but for organisations when they're looking for talent. And we've been so pleased with our career-wise students, so look out for projects where you can use more of them in future years. We really hope we can continue to participate.
I'm always looking for tech placements, cyber security, but particularly science placements. It's really difficult to get paid science placements, so the placements we get here at Marine Scotland are environmental science and geoscience. It's really difficult to get those placements, particularly up here in the north of Scotland as well, where oil and gas was once the big market that everyone went into, and that's not there now as much. It will come back, but it's not there. So it's about giving the students up here somewhere else to go, some other opportunities, and that's why I really value and I'm really thankful for the opportunities that Marine Scotland put through career-wise each year.
Feelings mutual. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I have no introduction. I'm going to leave the introductions entirely to Tess itself.
Thank you very much. Hi, how's it been going this morning? Very good. Are you all feeling empowered? Informed? Filled with anticipation of what I might be getting you to do in about 5 minutes time. Are you all good on one foot? Yes. We're not going to stand on one foot, I promise. So my name is Tess, and I'm really excited, and thank you very much for inviting me to come and be part of this very special day today. I've got a slideshow. I don't normally use slides, so we'll all be looking at it at some point and be surprised at what the next picture is going to be. But as we're going to be talking about confidence today, I'm going to do my utmost to be as comfortable up here and show you how it can happen. All right? So. Beautiful colour, isn't it, purple? Who hates purple? No one's going to raise their hand. So, balance or better? I'm sure it's brought up many thoughts, many conversations already. And the best part about celebrating International Women's Day at the beginning of the week is we only get to officially celebrate it on Friday, so you've got all week to really feel and think about all the interesting topics of conversations that we're having right now. Sorry. Okay. So, if you've been on the International Women's Day website, you probably would have seen this lovely, happy face. And have you all tried the pose? It makes me feel like I'm trying to walk like an Egyptian. Do you remember that song? So better the balance, better the world, balance for better. So I guess you've heard more about that today, and you will continue to. I want to go there. While I was putting this together, I came across this post on LinkedIn just yesterday, and who's played with Lego? Great. Because I thought this was quite appropriate, in fact, as we move towards this more balanced, more equal working space that we're trying to create for everybody, including getting more women higher up in the echelons of corporates and business to bring their influence. Can you read it? It's two parents who are buying Lego for their children. The urge to create is equally strong in all children, boys and girls. It's imagination that counts, not skill. You build whatever comes into your head the way you want it. A bed or a truck, a dollhouse or a spaceship. A lot of boys like dolls' houses. They're more human than spaceships, and a lot of girls prefer spaceships. They're more exciting than dolls' houses. The most important thing is to put the right material in their hands and let them create whatever appeals to them. And I think that is just so amazing. It was sent out in 1974. So, you know, have we come a long way? Have there been people wanting this kind of vision and viewpoint for a long time? I'm getting the gist of this. So today, I think that the title Uncomfortable to Confident is most appropriate because anybody who has to walk into a boardroom to present or stand up here and give a talk or have a difficult conversation or go to a job interview or a promotion interview has to deal with kind of wobbly knees and all the kinds of doubts and questions that come up that make you sometimes affect the result that you present. You know, if you're too nervous or if you're too uncomfortable, and that overrides everything you knew going in, it can make you sound less able than you actually are, and you can lose the opportunity. So I think uncomfortable is a good word, and by the end of my talk, I want you to get excited about becoming uncomfortable or putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, and know that when you're uncomfortable, you're in a place of learning, you're in a place of potential growth. Because when we're comfortable, we don't grow. We put our feet up, we go on the sofa, we chill out, we relax, we maybe daydream a bit, but we don't push ourselves. And becoming uncomfortable is the key to overcoming obstacles, facing your fears, and becoming someone you never ever believed you were capable of becoming. And that's what I do with my work every day. So that's me, and that was 2 weeks ago. As you can see, I had a slightly different Britney style microphone on. I started an event called Spotlight, which brings real issues with real people through real stories to the platform in Aberdeen. We had a wonderful event, and it's taken a long journey to get to that point for me in the confidence stakes. Because meet Mom and I. This was me starting out as a tiny little baby with all the potential in the world ahead of me. I had a loving mom who was petrified of me. I was the first baby in the family, actually the first grandchild as well. And she told me she just wanted to sometimes just close the door and run away. She didn't know what to do. So, you know, we're all going to be there. Some of us have been there. But think about that point in your life. You could pretty much eat, sleep, poop, and cry. But you went on to roll over, crawl, stand, walk, run, and then learn to read, write, learn, and fill your mind with interesting facts that then drove you to become and do what you're doing today. So why then do we struggle with confidence? Why do we get to a certain age where suddenly it's scary and we stop ourselves from certain opportunities or certain situations when way back in the beginning we didn't even think about being scared about it. We did it, we fell over, we got up, we fell over, we got up, we scraped our knee, we got up, we carried on until we got it right. And that is the greatest key to developing a good, strong inner confidence, or confidence in a topic, or in something that right now scares the heebie-jeebies out of you. Confident dog, you'd say, surfing in the big wide ocean. But inner confidence is hard to define, but you know it when you see it. I'm sure you can all agree. It's when a person knows that they're good enough and expresses it with every fiber of their being. People with this kind of confidence don't need to tell people how great they are. Their actions do all the talking. And that's really what you want to give off when you walk into a room where you've got to put your thoughts forward, stand your ground, fight your corner, get your funding, or whatever it is that you need to be heard over. That's what you want to feel like, the dog on the surfboard. So the next time you're in an uncomfortable position, close your eyes, think of the dog on the surfboard and say, that's me. I have inner confidence like that. Or you can pick your own picture as well. Okay, so what aspect do you want or need to improve in your confidence? Just think about that while I'm talking. What is it that perhaps, I sound like I'm assuming you all have something in the confidence arena that you'd like to improve on. Now, I could be wrong, maybe somebody here or quite a few of you are fully confident, and that's fantastic. So I'd say you need to help those that aren't. Okay? And what belief do you carry about this level of confidence? Because that's where it all starts from. You know, you're saying you don't have confidence in something. So that's a thought that you have. So where did that come from? Okay? What steps can you take to improve your confidence? Has anybody tried anything that they'd like to just quickly mention? Where you've been in a difficult, uncomfortable situation where confidence was required and you've tried something and it worked?
If you prepare for the situation, you know you're more confident.
Yeah, that's perfect. Great, yes. So being prepared is one of the key things as well that can really make you feel quite secure. You know, if you know your topic and you know what you're going to go present, then if all else fails, you've got your notes. You can go to them. Okay? You have a story, as I mentioned. The story is the thing that can either project you forward and allow you to continue to grow, or it can be something that always stops you at a certain point. You know, you can be marching along in your head and you know you're great and you know you're going to be amazing and you love it, you know your topic, you're prepared, and then you step into that uncomfortable place. And it all kind of just becomes a little diluted. And you come out and you feel disappointed because you knew that you just didn't get it across properly. Maybe the dialogue, you failed in that area or whatever. So confidence is vital in relationships, in communication, not just when you're in the boardroom and you've got to present something or stand up for yourself. In an argument, not that we argue, but we debate. So think about what you tell yourself when you face any challenge. Confidence is the topic for today, but in any challenge, what is that story that you tell? I'm not really very good at it. I can't. She's so much better. She should do it rather. I'm too nervous. My mouth gets dry. I've never done it before. They'll laugh. What do you tell yourself? Or do you walk around saying, I'm great at this. I actually love doing this. It's the best thing ever. I am confident. Because your language can empower you or disempower you. And tables can make you fall. So, how effective do you think this person is going to be walking into a situation where they have to bring their best self to win the deal or present or speak or defend themselves in a situation. This is where it comes to our physiology, our bodies. How we carry ourselves tells a lot about us. Now don't get all uncomfortable how you're sitting and what you're doing. But at the end of the day, it is body language, and it's our first indicator of how we feel. And that, when you go into an interview or whatever, is what you can't help but give off as your first message of introduction. The key is to be yourself. Not to try and walk in looking like a high-powered executive and inside you're like crumbling, but to just be yourself. But you can send a message out that gives a sense of encouragement, open-mindedness, and not worry on the point of the interview viewer. That looks a little more like, I'm going to go get this. I'm going to go win this. When we stand up and we stand tall, we'll do an exercise very soon. We get more oxygen into our brain and our bodies. And when we've got oxygen flowing around, we're more alert. If we're like this person, bent over, sluggish, looking at the ground, it takes our energy down, really into ourselves, and we become quite flat. But if we are, if we walk tall, shoulders back, oxygen going in, looking up, and preferably, if possible, a big smile on our face. Okay. There is no way on the planet you could feel miserable, grumpy, worried, because you're happy, right? If you smile, they say if you put a pencil in your mouth like this, okay, it forces the facial features up. And if you do that for a few minutes, even at your desk behind your computer, you just this way you don't talk and you don't say anything you regret, and at the same time, you're lifting yourself up. You feel great again, What kind of wrinkles do you want? Happy wrinkles or grumpy wrinkles? They create different shapes on your face. So, every time you put that pen in your mouth, think about how happy you're going to be very soon. So, these are tiny little, very simple physical things that you can do that will actually lift your sense of self-belief. And you don't have to have a PhD, which you probably will do. I don't, but I'm happy. Okay, so, walking tall, walking steady, with purpose, actually changes how you feel. This is not necessarily always about what you're giving out to others either. This is about how it's going to make you feel in that uncomfortable place. Okay? And you can do this in the office, at home, with family members. If you've always been a bit quiet and a bit sort of within, and you go in and start walking up straight, smiling, and they say, what happened to you? You look fabulous. You're so bright. You don't have to change who you are as a person. It's just, people will be more receptive to you. And that relaxes things a lot as well. So, which slide would you like to be in? Would you like to be with the Rolling Stones and Oprah? Who are all very tough and confident. We know that Mick Jagger, even at his age, is still running up and down the stage, And, these people are out doing this every single day, so their level of practice in this arena is very high. I would imagine you guys are all very confident in very specific areas of your fields, where you know your topic, you know what you do it well. Perhaps it's in certain aspects where, you get let down by yourself because you're not as practiced in the stage performing area of your life. Okay? But these guys down here, they're more inward. insular. And, you know, some people are extroverts, more outgoing. You know, the standard explanation of an extrovert is outgoing, chatty, loud, noisy, whatever. And your introvert is your thinker, your quieter individual. But sometimes people put on an extroverted persona to get through a situation, when in fact they're introverted. So don't judge a book by its cover. But it's about being comfortable with people. So,
Can I ask you to stand at the other side of the lectern because people can't see you? Excellent, thank you.
sorry. Hi. Okay, so where am I? Yeah. All right. Okay, so you all know who this lady is, right? Beyonce. She's one of the greatest, most confident stage performers out there, for good or bad. But I want you all to stand up, and we're going to experience I've got many names. Superwoman or Wonder Woman really is where it came from. You got it already. If you watch any Wonder Woman or Superwoman movies, she's always standing like this, you know. She's going to take the universe and save it, you know. So it actually is scientifically proven to empower you. So all you need to do is put your feet about shoulder length apart, but slightly apart. No crossed over, wrapped legs or anything like that, ladies. Okay, stand apart like this. Hands on your hips, not in your waist, but on your hips, okay? I want you to imagine that you've got this hook that's in your chest ribcage here, and it's pulling you up like that, okay? And chin out. And just breathe in deep. And stand like this for just 2 minutes. Okay. I know in this day and age where things have to happen fast, 2 minutes can be a lifetime, especially when we're overtime today. But this is important. So we'll have these 2 minutes, or as close as. But just see, you're all smiling. Look at you. I mean, if you could see yourselves, you're all smiling. It's the first time you've all smiled at the same time. It's really good. I think the baby's smiling too. Okay, so are you feeling anything? Is anything happening? Have you noticed parts of your body that don't normally hold this position? Because that can be sore. You know? We normally hunched over your laptop or your computer. And so imagine now you're just about to go in the boardroom. You're standing outside. They're waiting for you. No, you're waiting for them. You're empowered now. This physiology will last a long time, but it will allow you to walk in strong to a job interview, to a conversation that you need to have with someone that perhaps you don't really want to have. You know, we've all had to have those. This can really help you, and you can do it in the loo, privately. You can do it in your cubicle. You don't have to let everybody know that you're seeking to gain more confidence, you know. But just do this, even at home before you leave for the office in the morning, you know. It just kind of gets you, I feel good. I feel much better actually than I did before I started talking. I should have done it. I didn't. Right, I think that's a good enough way for you to understand what that feeling is. Just always imagine the chain that is pulling you up from here. It's strong, it's solid, it's your core. Okay? And after this, you can do just about anything. Right, thank you. So if you're highly stressed, you know they say in your work day you should work about 50, 55 minutes and then take 5 minutes. This is not to dive into Facebook, social media, or anything like that. It's to do nothing and rest this thing. The power pose stress can just bring you down to a very grounded place and just make you feel solid again if you're wanting to spin off. It increases taking risks. Imagine that. Us ladies who don't kind of do that easily. Imagine a bit of posing and taking more risks. But for guys as well, you know, we shouldn't even think that confidence is gender specific. Okay? Confidence hits us all. It's not just about the girls, but guys have it too. We are human beings. We are people with feelings, with emotions, with challenges. We have ourselves that we have to develop and grow wherever we go. It doesn't matter. Sorry. I'm obviously scared to be in the room. I obviously lack the confidence to stand in the house. I'll work on it. Okay, so you'll have a higher pain threshold. More abstract thinking, as if you don't have enough of that around here already. But you know, if you're stuck on a problem, or if you can't quite find a solution to something, power pose. Try it. You're nothing to lose except 2 minutes. Okay? And then you're more likely to just succeed in high stress. And I know that pretty much all of us at some point in every day have stressful times. You know, and with practice, you could even almost visualize the power pose and bring that state into your life. If you practice it enough, you could actually just realize it immediately in an instant. Okay. It's not working. So, don't forget that. The other thing that works really well when you're wanting to develop more confidence is to have some kind of, have you heard of affirmations and incantations? You know, when you speak to yourself in the mirror in the morning before you leave the house and tell yourself how incredible you are, how skilled you are, how lovely you are, how amazing you are. This is not just about the job you do. This is not just about what you make happen at the desk. It's about the person you bring to the environment that you work in. It's about the connection you have with the people you work with. Happy environments, happy people produce a lot better quality work. And it's not just about that, because that's what the employer wants, right? Don't you want to love coming to work, love going home, love being wherever you take yourself? That's what confidence is all about. It's about having good experiences. It's about getting to know the people that you work with, the strangers in the hallway. Hi. Yeah. Oh, hi, how are you? I heard. Are you all right? I'm so sorry. Or, congratulations. You know, so, I know I'm picking on you, but it's so exciting. So. Okay, so you could say things like, I'm going to be happy. I'm going to skip. I mean, I know. Really, you say to yourself, me skip? Okay. When last did you skip? 6.5, maybe 7? You know? Where's the inner child? What happened to it? Did it get stuck in work? Okay? Think about, you know, the things you used to do when you were young that brought joy to your life. Okay, maybe it wasn't skipping, but you know what you love to do. I'm going to be glad. I'm going to smile a lot. Yes, because you've already kind of started getting in your heads again. Smile! Okay? And I'm going to be easy. I'm going to flow. I'm going to go with the flow. Okay? I'm going to count my blessings. I'm going to look for reasons to feel good. I'm going to dig up positive things from the past. Better get that in the middle of it. Okay. See. Feel it. This is what is most natural for me. So find your natural place. Don't reinvent yourself to the point that nobody recognizes you anymore. Be who you are. Don't hide who you are. You're wonderful. And you're here for a reason. So let people know you. And I am a happy person. Change the story. Transform your beliefs. Be determined. Know why you do what you do. Do you know why you get up every morning and come to work? Do you know that it is very empowering to know that you are fulfilling a very important purpose, each one of you? By just opening your eyes, having a heart that beats, who you are and what you take with you wherever you go is part of making somebody else smile today. Helping somebody else's job be easier and better. Clearly, you're all parts of teams. You work together, you help each other, you support each other, and then the team wins. That takes confidence sometimes. If you don't necessarily always know your teammates too well or get on with them perhaps, you have a different viewpoint in situations, you know, it takes confidence to still do the job, but enjoy it. So, think about why you're here. What's your little bit of magic? Because when you smile, it's a lot more obvious than when you don't smile. Okay? And practice. Practice, practice. You were saying being prepared is one of the ways that can help you in a tricky situation, whether it's a presentation or whatever. Okay, so what I would say is, a monster in the room. One of the key things to anything in life, you know, you've studied, you've got a qualification. There were ships standing in. Oh, hi. There's Alexis. Hi. Hi. One of the things that are really important to know is that when you learn to walk and talk, when you went to uni and you studied and you got a qualification, when you got into anything you didn't know, you didn't get it right first time. You had to practice till you got it right. And at the end of the day, practice makes permanent. We no longer say practice makes perfect because it doesn't mean that you're doing it right. But whatever you do regularly, you will make into a habit. Okay? And you want those habits. So practice. If you need to be better in the boardroom, go beg for boardroom opportunities. I need to be in the boardroom. Or do role plays, you know? Role play it. The power pose, you all know, I'm sure you'll all be doing that. And tell others about it, share it, pass it on. You know, if you can all power pose before you go into a team meeting as well, that would be great. Incantations, it's the force, the power force. Okay, incantations, affirmations, find those words that make you feel strong. You know, say it to yourself in the mirror. Fake it till you make it. But, you know, sometimes it feels really false to go to your mirror and say that you're an amazing, talented, gifted person who has every right, like the person next to you, to live an amazing life. But keep saying it, I tell you. It's like the ship on the ocean. Okay, just 2 degrees and 2 minutes to go before I kick out. 2 degrees shift in an ocean liner's direction changes the course of the journey dramatically. 2 tiny little takes from today could dramatically change the next experience you choose to have. And review. Oh, don't forget your physiology. Walk up. If you're feeling miserable, walk up. Miserable doesn't get you anywhere. Walking up makes you feel amazing. And it can change what doesn't feel good to feeling good. Okay? There's always a solution. Thanks. And review. Always reflect. How was today? How did it go? Where could I have been better at that? Okay? And visualize. Who visualizes? Who has visualized? Fabulous. Okay? So you understand the power of that. That ability to be able to see yourself achieving this goal, this ultimate level of confidence that perhaps you're aspiring to. See yourself in that role. See yourself in the boardroom. You know, see yourself in the interview. See yourself in those uncomfortable places, but see yourself winning it, achieving it, and loving it, and knowing that your life will never be the same again because you've decided to opt into a little bit more of this confidence thing. Thank you. We have got no time for questions.
We've space for one question. Good. or elsewhere. I heard such energy in the room when we sat down after the power pose and the chatting. It was really noticeable.
I think what's also nice with it is you've all done it, so there's enough of you to make a tribe of poses, power poses. So that's fantastic. And if anybody has any questions or anything that you maybe want to tackle or deal with, I can help, because sometimes we have fears in the way that we just can't get out of the way, and that's really holding me back. So if it's all right, you're happy to email me at the website.
Thank you very much, Tess. We're looking forward to working with such happy people.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you. Okay.
It's in order to leave some space for Leslie Evans, our permanent secretary, and you're able to join us here. And mic'd up, we have some people from Pitlochry, Dundee, and Alexis has skyped in from one of the vessels as well, so maybe appear in here. If you could stay this side of the lectern, they can all see you.
That's great, I shall do that. Thank you. So, is this near enough for everyone to see me? Good morning. And it's great to be back here. It's not that long since I was last here. And I made a promise when I was last here to come back at the time of International Women's Day. I don't think anybody really believed that I would. So I'll just reiterate that when I make a promise, I really do try and keep it. So good to see you all joining us, and indeed people joining us from all over the country, including from a boat, which is even better. And according to the programme, I'm going to be delivering an inspirational speech. But actually, as many of you know, the issue of equality, women and girls, is an issue really close to my heart. And International Women's Day is a precious opportunity for us all to pause and reflect on where we've been, where we are, and crucially, where we need to go as women, as a wider organisation, and indeed as society in Scotland. Many of you will be aware that 2018 marked the anniversary of the Representation of the People Act 1918, which gave women over 30 who owned property the right to vote and opened the door to full women's suffrage in 1928. Is that my mic or somebody else's?
It's Alexis.
It's mine. So it followed an unrelenting campaign over years with much pain and personal sacrifice that you will have read and learnt about for many of its supporters. And the actions of those women still resonate. My own grandmother, Florence, witnessed the death of suffragette Emily Davidson on Epsom Racecourse in 1913. And my office, some of you will know it, in St Andrew's House, is on the site of a prison which was used to imprison suffragettes. And in fact, last year on International Women's Day, we took some photos of that very space. Despite the efforts of those who campaigned for suffrage, 2018 and the #MeToo campaign reminded us we're still a long way away from equality. During that time, women shared their personal stories about sexual harassment at an unprecedented scale. Some of you will have been seeing this on social media. Twitter reported the #MeToo hashtag was shared nearly 1 million times in 48 hours. And on Facebook, the comments and reactions totaled more than 12 million in 24 hours. So we're still quite a way away from true gender equality. But this year's International Women's Day theme is #BalanceForBetter. And it's true, we still need to get a better balance of men and women in all areas of social, cultural, economic, and indeed political life. The Scottish Government is no exception, and we need more women at every level, but particularly at the senior civil service. We've improved over the last 2 years, but we still only have 44% women at the senior civil service level. And we need more men in traditionally female-dominated roles right across the public sector, but especially in caring professions. Here in Marine Scotland, women are still the minority at 36%. And STEM industries continue to be of concern. Engineering in Scotland has less than 10% female participation. Computer science is 18%, and that's actually gone down from 32% in 2012. So turning these figures around requires sustained cross-cutting efforts. And many of you here today, or calling in today, will work in male-dominated areas. Some of you I know are active in the Women and Equalities Network, ensuring all voices can be heard in this organisation and beyond. So collectively, I regard you as representing the essential disruptors of the status quo. Can I say, keep going, keep disrupting, keep challenging. I need you to keep questioning and disrupting right across your organisation and beyond. So you have my explicit permission to proceed unless apprehended. Now, there is progress. There are women, though, let's face it, not nearly enough, who have reached the top of their professions. But how many ethnic minority women are making it to the top? How many transgender women? How many gay women, openly gay women? How many women with disabilities? Not many. And actually, it's not just about men or women, it's which women and which men that matters. So in striving for balance, we must strive for a true balance which reflects the multiple layers of our own identity, the layers that make us individuals. We won't reach equality for women until all women are equal. It was the American writer, feminist and civil rights activist Audre Lorde who said, "I'm not free while any woman is unfree, even when her shackles are very different from my own." We're operating in a VUCA world. Some of you would have heard me talk about what I regard as being a volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous world. Though recently when I put this on Saltire, somebody came underneath and said, "I wish the perm set would just VUCA off." So clearly people are familiar with it, but perhaps too much now. However, a VUCA world requires and indeed demands a particular kind of leadership. Collaborative leadership, more distributed and more diffuse power. So let me share a couple of qualities that I think a successful leader and manager needs in a VUCA world. Many women, many people, but particularly women I think, will identify with my first quality, and that's tenacity. So you will know, in the face of prejudice, gender stereotyping and unconscious bias, it takes grit and tenacity to stay the course. And I need tenacity in this job. As advocate and ambassador for Scotland, I'm conscious that tenacity is about taking tough decisions, often in the face of easier alternatives. Believe me, I've experienced that over the past year. Tenacity is also about persistence. Nevertheless, she persisted. For how many does that resonate here? And tenacity is about resilience too, knowing what helps you give of your best and protecting time for it. As my yoga teacher would say, pause, breathe, notice. I don't do that often enough, I'm sure. The second quality I would pick out for this VUCA world is humility. And that's essential if we're really going to remain open to learning, to new ideas, and to practice collective and collaborative leadership, that the pursuit of outcomes and the National Performance Framework, which we're all working, if we're really going to make that a reality. As civil servants, we do not and cannot know all the answers, but that's not always easy to admit at a time, particularly now, when staff but the public crave certainty. As Ellen Langer, the first woman ever to be tenured in psychology at Harvard, says, we need to be less certain we know the right answer. And humility encourages and enables challenge. And that's one of the reasons I deliberately restructured the Scottish Government's governance structures and introduced new and specialist non-executive directors to encourage greater transparency and greater challenge. Particularly important that we've now been serving the same political party in power for over 10 years. I think community also means not taking yourself too seriously, keeping a sense of humour and a sense of proportion. Close friends and family can be really helpful in this respect, and actually one's sons and daughters are particularly good at that kind of keeping you grounded. So, leadership skills, leadership practices are key, but what else? Well, I think we need to focus on 3 areas if we're going to achieve meaningful change. The first is about creating cultures which allow all women to thrive. The second is about supporting our next generation of women and girls. And third, including men in our balance for better. So firstly, cultures, and I deliberately use the word cultures because we're talking about a number of different aspects here. Firstly, all culture and all change, I feel, if it's going to have an impact, is local. We know from the People Survey data and wider evidence that local is what matters to people. It's where people take their cue about what's expected of them, but also what's acceptable, how we do things around here. So we can and should knit our own local culture, taking cues and support, yes, from the wider organisation with a sense of direction and the culture it's trying to create, but rooting it in local experience. So let me ask you, what kind of culture supports you and your aspirations here in Marine Scotland? What needs to change in your team's culture to realise that support? And what are you and your team and the network that you've established doing to create and build that culture? My advice is, if your culture isn't helpful, change it. Call it out, name it, challenge it. We all know from recent publicity that Marine Scotland has reputational skin in the game here as well. So you've got a unique opportunity to build the culture you need and want to see right here, and the culture you want to experience. Remember, as I always say, what you permit, you promote. So the standard you walk past is the standard, and the culture you tolerate. Now, culture is slow to change. It's not that long ago that I was astoundingly asked at a job interview what my husband thought about my blinded post. I didn't answer that question. Not that long ago since I was quizzed about why I hadn't taken my husband's name on marriage. And to much to his frustration, he's often referred to as Mr. Evans now. And I also remember the astonished looks when I turned up for an interview, and they were clearly expecting Leslie to be a man. And the interview lasted about 10 minutes. Despite all that, culture eats strategy for breakfast. It's the most powerful tool we have. But whilst we continue to shift that culture dial, we need tangible change elsewhere too. We need to show that we keep the faith that action is happening. And supporting our girls is something we can do now, and it's an investment for the future. Girls today, many of you will know this, and experience it indeed, are living in a paradoxical world. They have seemingly limitless choice, and yet the very constraints that held women back still remain. So we need to be our girls' allies. We need to support them to work with a system and within a system that was not designed for them, whilst challenging that system every step of the way. And we must lift as we climb, by which I mean, last year, 2018, two of my highlights was being joined by several young, care-experienced women for shadowing days, and a mutual mentoring relationship which I struck up with a minority ethnic woman from the Scottish Government. Both experiences brought fresh perspective, challenge and growth for everyone involved, and I would really recommend both shadowing and mentoring. But if we're to shape the best future for our girls, we need everyone's help. And we can encourage our boys to explore all sides of themselves and reject singular ways of expressing masculinity. And it's as good for them as it is for girls and women. Emotions, vulnerability, nurturing, are characteristics which are essentially human traits rather than just female. As Gloria Steinem once said, women are always saying, we can do anything that men can do, but men should be saying, we can do anything that women can do. And men play a very powerful role in the workplace, influencing and challenging their peers on acceptable and unacceptable behaviours, rejecting locker room banter, and standing up for what's right. It might mean calling out misogyny, it might mean supporting a colleague, it might mean asking a friend to see or consider a perspective or an impact that they're perhaps just not aware of. Moreover, I see men demonstrate leadership qualities like tenacity and humility and practice self-reflection and questioning every day in the Scottish Government and elsewhere. And it's very powerful in helping to shift team and organisational culture. We might need fewer women to be uncertain. We definitely need some men to be uncertain. We must support, include and engage men as champions and allies in our movement, bringing them alongside as agents of change. And in preparing for today, I asked my son, who's about 26, if he considered himself a feminist. And I received a very millennial WhatsApp response. LOL, of course. My work here is done. But the next generation is one of the reasons I remain optimistic about the future. I was at the tech company IBM in USA a few years back, and I heard the chief there talking about the 3 generational attitudes to technology. The first was of my parents' generation, who carefully scrutinised the instruction manual of any new appliance and then laboriously followed every instruction step by step. The second was my generation, which glanced at the instructions, then threw them to one side and started stabbing at buttons and things in a rather arbitrary trial and error approach. The third, the younger generation, simply asked, why would you need instructions? And this applies to equality and inclusion. One day, we shall not require instruction. A day in which women and girls have limitless choice and we have intersectional gender balance in all areas of social, cultural, political and economic life. I've heard a story, it may be anecdotal, but the female president of Iceland says when her grandson was watching her on television, that he asked his mother, who was watching with him, Mum, can a man be president too? We're not there, but we're on our way, and we keep going. So let me end on an offer and an ask. My ask is threefold. Firstly, continue to support and look out for each other as you push for change. Secondly, take your own well-being and resilience seriously. Thirdly, and critically, support young women. Let's champion, encourage, and rally round our young women in our lives, at work and at home. Lift as we climb. For my part, I am going to identify, appoint and support a male gender equality champion from the senior civil service in the Scottish Government, because I want men to be part of this conversation, championing the cause and calling out unacceptable behaviour. All genders in from gender equality.
I'm inspired already. That's fantastic. It's touched on so many topics that we've already heard this morning, about balance and about supporting each other and together building a better culture. It's just been great. And we do have some time for questions, and we are using Slido for questions. And I think we've got Alexis on the line. So I think, given the level of feedback, we might go first to the ship. And Alexis, if we can.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for the opportunity to dial in this afternoon. I've just got a question for the Permanent Secretary that I've heard. Really, it centres around the idea of representation, in particular female representation within the workforce. And many argue that it is easier for individuals to visualize themselves in a position if they can look and see someone who looks like them and see maybe even shines like them already in that role. I can certainly identify with this, having never sailed with a senior female officer, and certainly none of my colleagues have ever sailed with a female captain. So my question, Permanent Secretary, is, do you agree the representation of women in leadership positions is key to ensuring a fairer, kinder and more equitable workplace, not just for the benefit of women, but for the benefit of all in the workplace? And if you do agree, what real steps are the Scottish Government taking to ensure that women are able to continue in their careers long enough to reach those higher levels of leadership? Thank you.
Great question. It's great for having you join us. You've got an interesting sort of dub beat going on. We'll miss once when we take the sound down. So, first of all, I think the answer to that is yes. I think the opportunity to visualise, to see people who are like you in positions of authority, in positions of responsibility, wherever that is in the organisation, is absolutely essential. And that's one of the reasons why I was striving in my talk earlier on to talk about the inclusivity of this. This isn't just about certain kinds of women, or indeed certain men, but actually what we need to look at is bringing everybody up in the opportunities to make use of their talent and for us to really appoint people from the widest talent pool. When you ask about what we can do, to set the context.
Alexis, could you mute your microphone and see if the... I hope you can still hear us.
So when we can, the only way we're going to be able to see that happening across the piece, and in fact this is an inclusion issue, it's not just about women, but I'll focus on that for the time being. In order to do that, we need to have several things. We need to have our recruitment opportunities as inclusive as possible, absolutely key. Now, up until recently, we've not been able to recruit very much outside what I can call the body of the organisation. We have now changed that. We are taking on lots more people for reasons which we can go into another time. I don't need to bore you with, you know much about it. And the last B-band recruitment that we had the most diverse application process and actual recruitment and success process that we've had, particularly in terms of minority ethnic community and also from disability. But that didn't happen by accident. That was a lot of hard work right at the very beginning of our thinking about how we describe the posts, the flexibility, the opportunity to do part-time working, job share, who understood that we really wanted them to apply. So we did a lot of background work to ensure that people were coming into the organisation in positions of some authority actually, but also making it clear to them that we wanted everybody in Scotland to feel that the Scottish Government represents them. There's no point in us pretending to be inclusive unless we actually can speak with some authority about the communities that we represent. That includes socio-economic community, as well as Black, Asian, minority ethnic community. So we've got recruitment processes which are important. We've got some in-house and in-career development opportunities which you'll find out a bit more about on Soltire. That includes mentoring and shadowing opportunities which I mentioned earlier on. And we've also got, I think, to get the culture that expects people to aspire to carry on their careers within the Scottish Government or indeed wider public service in Scotland as an opportunity to grow, develop and increase their skill base. That level of ambition and expectation is something I talk about a lot, and I think that cultural opportunity is a big part of getting across the points that Alexis is questioning at the moment.
Thank you. And that resonates. Alexis, do you want to come in?
Sorry, I just wanted to thank you very much for having me on again, Permanent Secretary, and also for your reply this morning. Unfortunately, we're actually preparing to leave port at the moment, so I'll have to sign off for now. But before I do so, I just wanted to extend the invitation again for you to come on board one of the vessels while stuck in patrol. I know that you were down on the Jura while she was alongside in Aberdeen, and I certainly would relish the opportunity to have you out with us on the Minna on the West Coast. So I will leave it there. Thank you very much, and happy International Women's Day, everyone. Bye now.
Thank you so much for coming. And I will be there. I take your offer.
Excellent, fantastic. I will see you on board. Bye now.
Thanks, Alexis. I'm going on board some of the ships soon, so I'm really excited about that too. You talk about recruitment and inclusivity has really resonated with some of the work that we're doing in the Marine Scotland People Project. In fact, Tim and I were talking about this just this morning as well, so it's really important. And as you say, starting way back, and in fact we heard from CareerWise earlier about encouraging women to think about careers in science and technology.
Absolutely.
And that's part of it for us.
Indeed, and actually, I mean, that goes back to my point about the disruptors. You're in a really good position to be as innovative and as proactive as you can be. You're representing the public sector, a really important, iconic, actually, organisation, not just in terms of what you do, but who's here doing it. And so the opportunity for the public and for young women to understand what career opportunities here are tremendous. And you are all ambassadors, not just in what you do here, but in your home lives. People will look to you and think, she's doing that, why aren't I thinking about it as a career? And the more we can do that and support you in doing that, the better.
Give me a great opening to thank our outreach and the team that go out to schools and invite schools in here and hold open days and so on. You always see people leaving that with such a buzz of excitement.
Of course. There's nothing like being at home to, in realistic terms, as in meeting somebody like that.
One question
Just a question about what has been the biggest obstacle for your career progression, and how did you overcome that obstacle?
How long have you got? No, that's unfair. I think my biggest obstacle actually was growing up at a time when it still felt so unusual for women to either expect or aspire to having a career and be able to combine that with having a family. I was very lucky because my mother actually just sort of went on and did it. You know, she had 3 kids, she had a career, but she was very unusual. Having seen her do that, but also seen the toll it took as well, because my father, as she always said, he does all the driving. But I mean, she did run the whole household as well as look after us and do a full-time job. Seeing that made me think, actually, why can't I do that? But when I went out there and tried to do it, it felt quite tough because other people's expectations did not match mine. So in my, I would say early to mid, actually my 20s, I found that relentlessness of having to just keep going against not just questioning, but outright incredulity about why I would want to go for another job, have a baby. The other issue was I was supposed to go in for maternity leave 8 weeks before the baby was due, but I only got 10 weeks maternity leave. So it was all bonkers in those days because nobody expected you to come back after you'd had a child. So that was the kind of context that I found most, was one of the obstacles. Having said that, some of the people who were in the heart of that conservative with a small c culture were some of my greatest helpers. So some of the men I worked with during that time, because I didn't have to choose to work with, were fantastic supports to me, so carry on.
Don't know if you want to come
Take the seats. Okay, I will. I'll sit down.
And we'll maybe alternate or combine those with questions from the
On the
audience.
Slido. So we've got 3 questions that you can see here. Let me see if I can get through all of them. What is your view on recruitment gender quotas? Well, I mean, my view is pretty irrelevant, really, because we subscribe to a policy within the organisation, which is one of, as I was mentioning earlier on, about inclusivity. However, you will be aware that the Parliament has just passed statutory objectives for all public bodies to have minimum numbers of women on their boards by, I think it's 2022, there should be 50% women on their boards. So my view is irrelevant, though you can imagine what it might be. The point more particularly, I think, is what can we mobilise around our processes to make them as appealing and inclusive as possible, and where legislation or statutory objectives are appropriate, where should they cite, where should they focus their energies? And at the moment, public laws is where I think rightly Scottish Parliament has spent its time. However, before I finish that, I mentioned the band recruitment that we undertook last year. And what I said to the people directorate who were undertaking that recruitment is, don't come back to me with shortlists that are not diverse and inclusive. Just don't, because this has to be our biggest opportunity for about 5 years to get a different and diverse, inclusive, new talent into the organisation. Apart from the fact that we know statistically that we're missing out on talent if we're not getting people coming in from minority ethnic community, from people with disabilities and so on. We're only harvesting a tiny bit of what Scotland has to offer. Have I experienced a mentoring and shadowing opportunity that impacted you in your own career path, and how would you encourage others to get involved on both sides? So, yes, I have. I've had several actually mentoring and shadowing opportunities. I'm very lucky from that point of view. But I have to say that I created them myself. I just went up to somebody and said, I really like the way you seem to approach your work. Can I shadow you? And actually, I don't think anybody had the nerve to say no. And I aimed high, you know, I got shadowing opportunity for 2 permanent secretaries when I was a director. But I wrote to them nicely and said, please could I come and shadow you for a day? I also, with some support, this was a programme, shadowed the chief executive of Sainsbury's for a day, and he came and shadowed me for a day, which was fantastic, quite surprising. I had to sign, as you might imagine, a confidentiality clause, though he had to for us as well, to be fair. But I suppose my point is, don't wait for somebody to set that up for you. There's plenty of material online about what makes a good shadowing opportunity, what makes a good mentoring relationship. And actually, if you know somebody who does mentoring, starting off with them and just asking them a little bit about what the ingredients for success. But I am both a mentor and I am mentored. And I think that's the important thing. You get just as much out of one side of the relationship as you do the other. But you need a chemistry. So don't go to somebody who you think is a bit of a pain in the neck, but would look good on your CV, because the pain is not worth it, let me tell you. Find somebody, maybe a little bit further on in their career, possibly not in the area that you're operating in, or get somebody like the line manager or the deputy director to recommend somebody who they think would be a good match. And a day is not that difficult, a day to find. But make use of the day. Be clear about what you want to get out of it. Make sure that you're clear with the person you're shadowing. These are things I'm most interested in, whether that's public presentations, or whether that's to do with technical aspects of leading, or whether that's to do with chairing meetings. It could be a range of things, quite simple things. Be clear about what the 2 or 3 things are, and then they'll create the day or choose a day. You're more likely to get that kind of opportunity to see or discuss those kinds of skills. So those of you who've done it, talk it up to others, but just, you know, screw the courage to the last and just make sure that you ask somebody if you think, I could get something out of you. And if they say no, so what? Cross them off your Christmas card list. Try somebody else. Could we see a risk for women being recruited in order to fill or equalise the gender quota rather than being recruited for their talent and expertise? Well, in theory, yes. This goes back to the point about how and if you have gender quotas. But actually, what you're always wanting to do is just find the talent, find the expertise. And that is the issue, actually. That is getting to the places where you know there are people who have got talent, skills, experience, outlooks on life that are not represented in the organisation, who are just as intelligent, just as well experienced, just as well voiced, just as confident as the people we have in the organisation, but who are currently thinking that organisation is not for me, so I'm not going to apply for it. That's the challenge, not the challenge of whether we're giving jobs away to people who aren't very good. I haven't seen any of that. I think that's a complete non-entity. Honestly, any organisation, institution who does that doesn't deserve to carry on. But the big challenge is persuading people who are now counting you out as an organisation. I won't put an application in for the graduate development programme at the Scottish Government, or won't put an application in for a modern apprenticeship at the Scottish Government. Why not? And when I spoke to a load of young people a year ago from a majority minority ethnic school, their view was, well, we thought about going to apply for the UK government, but we never thought the Scottish government. Why not? Why not? Mostly because they saw people from the Scottish government who were not like them, or didn't come from their background, or who they couldn't relate to. And that's why this is self-fulfilling, it's a virtuous circle. We've got to represent the communities that we represent in our working lives.
I have one that popped up. I just wondered if there's anything in the room before.
The good work-life balance. Balance for better, indeed. And actually, the one thing I have learned from this job, I've learned many things, is the importance of this. It really is, because this job, and actually any job, you all know this, any job you're passionate about, any job which is absorbing, any job that you feel have a level of responsibility, any job that you feel you want to do well in, has the opportunity to tip over into its everything. You wake up in the night thinking about it, you have tea thinking about it, you forgot to write so-and-so down, so you run off and write a list down here, your husband or your partner's talking to you, you're not really listening, you're thinking about this over here. There's just so many opportunities to slide into that. I'll stay a bit longer, I'll go in a bit earlier, or I'll think about it when I'm away from work. Now don't get me wrong, sometimes that feels creative, that feels like energetic, that's great. Other times I think it can be a downfall. And I have had to watch my energy levels quite carefully in this role. So I do 2 or 3 things actually. I know what helps me switch off, and I suspect you do too. And I put it in my diary. So one piece of advice somebody gave to me years ago was, they said, what makes you less stressed? And I reeled off all these things that make me less stressed. Glass of wine, watching supervets, yoga, blah, blah, blah. And he said to me, do more of it. We're very poor at carving out me time. Women in particular, because you're always at somebody else's beck and call. Same for many men as well, I know, and particularly people who've got caring responsibilities in their lives. But actually, sometimes you've got to do that thing that they tell you to do in the aeroplane, where you put your own mask on first, before you put the mask on your neighbour or child or anybody else. Actually, I do think that is important, which is one of the reasons why I said, look after each other, but look after your resilience. So I program in, I go to yoga quite regularly, as my team knows. I go up to Skye and get out in the fresh air a lot. I have time with friends, I see my family, I read. I sometimes just need to go out and walk about a bit. I've tried to do more walking meetings recently, where I just go out with people that I'm due to have a meeting and we talk about whatever we're talking about, walking around, and it's a completely different meeting. Completely different dynamic. So, if there's one piece of advice you should take away from this, and you'll get it from other people, not just me, probably more imaginative examples, make sure you get some time which is for you and which helps re-energize you. What do you do? Just kind of talk on that. So I'll be quick on these. How do you challenge unacceptable behaviour when the person is more senior and powerful? Good question. So I think there's a couple of things here. I think there are ways of asking people about their behaviour. I'm talking here about behaviour which is predominantly verbal, or behaviour rather than somebody pinning you to the wall. Though I'm not saying that in any laughing way. But when you're talking about the undermining thing, that slightly patronising tone and so on, I think there's 2 ways of doing it. I mean, if it becomes ingrained and corrosive, I think you can talk to a person who is either on a par with that person or who has some influence and power, and I think you should just do that. So if you're a line manager, is doing this, you should be talking to either a peer of your line manager, who you trust, or, of course, HR or the people director, or their line manager, and just say, I just want to let you know that. This is an off-the-record thing, I just want to let you know that I am finding this. When he or when she does this, it makes me feel X. That's the kind of sentence you want to be wrapping in. But actually, I have said to people, particularly during the time when I was in my 20s, what do you think you're doing? That's a good question to ask. What do you think you're doing? That's the more extreme end of the spectrum. The other side is just to say, could we have a better conversation with this? Could we actually couch this in terms which is just a bit easier and a bit more equal than this feels like to me? So you've got to ask the question in a way that allows them to pause and think about it. How do you, we did our whole seminar on that, how do you respond to more benevolent or unintentionally sexist behaviours and comments in the workplace? Overreacting. I love these questions. That is a fantastic one. So, I think you have to call, I found you have to call out patronising undercurrents. That happened, I mean, even now that happens. You must have that. All of you must have had some experience of patronising undercurrents. And actually somebody said something to me the other day. And I'm Methuselah now, so nobody cares what I say really, I'm so old. But I just said, did you really just say that? And I said it in what I thought was quite a charming way. But it did have a bit of steel behind it, you're right. And I think you have to find your own technique of doing that. But you have every right to do that. You have every right to ask that question. And don't ever think you don't. You do it politely, you do it if possible with a slight, a charm, but you don't also, you're not giving ground. And that's what I mean about calling things out. When you see and hear people say things, whether it's to you or not, asking the question, you really just say that, and seeing what their reaction is. That's part of our responsibility. What you permit, you promote. So if I didn't say that, and that person said it to the next, as it happened, woman, what would I have done? What would I have added? Not much.
On the question of benevolent sexism, we've done some work with Murray Edwards College, Cambridge, and ourselves in Sasha. We've been working with them. And that is one of the points that they bring up, that sometimes, in the terms of gender inequality, men might not offer an opportunity to a woman if they assume that, oh, she can't take it up because she's got children, oh, she can't travel to this conference because, oh, she can't do this because she's part-time.
And I think part of that goes back to the corporate offer, I would say here, about making sure that all our managers and all of you in positions of authority, when you're advertising posts or encouraging people to come work with you, how explicit are you being about what the flexibility of the offer is? Because if you're not, you need to be. You need to be absolutely explicit. There isn't a job in the organisation, I think I'm right in saying this, at some point some people will call me out on it, but I don't think there is a job in the organisation that we have agreed as not being suitable for job share. And as far as I'm concerned, that includes mine. I used to work for an organisation and the chief executive's post was included for job share. So you have to actually say why it's not possible to job share it. And I can't think of a good reason why a job isn't job shareable. In fact, in my experience, you get a hell of a lot more sometimes out of two people job sharing than you do, particularly when have a slight overlap, than you do with one person who's feeling a bit under the cosh by the time Friday comes along. You get this fresh injection of energy and excitement and innovation midway through the week or halfway through the day when people are taking up that job share opportunity. So I think we need to be really explicit. The assumption is that our jobs are flexible, location neutral, and that is one that people ask me a lot about, and have an opportunity for people to work part-time or to job share. And if they're not, if you really want that person, how can you make it applicable to their circumstances? We have more authority and power and responsibility than we think.
I'd love to job share, just putting that out there.
If we were
sort of running out of time.
Yes.
We've got 2 questions.
Right, so we've got how can a B grade challenge? I'll leave my reading just now till the end. How can a B grade challenge and influence culture change? So I think it goes back to a bit of what I was talking about earlier on. First of all, 1 B grade is on their own a pretty feisty individual. 5 B grades, or an action learning set of B grades, is a force to be reckoned with. So let's mobilise ourselves into small groups, whether that's in teams, in action learning sets, in mentoring relationships, whatever it might be, like-minded individuals from anywhere within the organisation or without, and say, what is it that we want to change? What's the aspect of the culture here that I feel really needs to change? The challenge that I gave you when I was talking earlier on. Who can we bring on our side? Who are our allies? Who is my ally as a new B band or a B band operating in an area that I feel is not conducive to my development and my career? And I think we can call it out in the way that I was talking about earlier on. And I think we need to be able to start to describe what good looks and feels like. So how many of you have got an objective for next year, perhaps now not this year, but how many of you are thinking about your objectives for next year, and how many of those will include something about making your organisation, your part of the organisation, more inclusive? Right, so hands up if you're going to. Hands keep coming. So it's perfectly legitimate. In fact, I would say it's essential if you're going to feel that you've got something to offer, and everybody should have, in making it a more welcoming, inclusive, and equal organisation. What your bit of that is recognising your objectives. So you're not doing this in your spare time. You're not doing it because you're nice. You're doing it because you're a professional. And you're part of Marine Scotland's onslaught on making the organisation inclusive, diverse, and equal. So think about what your objective, whether you're a B-band or not, is, whether you're a man or a woman, and say, what's my contribution to this? And that, of course, goes across the whole of the diversity network that we're trying to develop and support here.
If you want some ideas on objectives, or if you want some ideas of things that you can do, give me a shout, because I need some help.
Good. So that takes me, we're coming here. How are we doing on time? We've got 2 minutes? 1 minute. Right. Okay. How neutral can that be? Is outside Scotland but within the UK okay? That's challenging, I would say. I think we've still got quite a lot to make location neutral happen within Scotland. And talking to colleagues from Dundee not long ago, they would certainly echo that. So we're still on a bit of an uphill trajectory on this. So you need to keep holding us, me, others, and our feet to the fire to make sure that location neutral becomes a reality for people. That really tests the flexibility of our procedures and our processes here. And I don't think we're anything like as far as we need to be. So you might want to give us a bit more ideas and feedback about how we would make that better in the future from your experience. What are you reading just now? Lovely question. Well, actually, I've just finished reading Pompeii by Mary Beard. I don't know if you know her. She's good, isn't she? And the reason I was reading it is because it was my 60th birthday in December. And it's slightly more mature of you will understand this. The birthday present he gave me was a DVD of Frankie Howard in fact Pompeii. And I tried to look, well, pretty good, putting on a grateful face when I was 3. But when I opened it, of course, it was 2 tickets to visit Pompeii and Copenhagen, which I did 3 weeks ago. It was, well, fantastic. Husband, I've got it. Don't tell him. But that's why I was reading. I've just finished it, actually having come back. I read the Mary Beard Pompeii book, which was tremendous. And I've got a whole stack of other books on Kindle, which I'm looking forward to having further go out over Easter.
Enjoyed your reading list on Twitter recently.
Yes, avocado maybe. That's a top.
Thank you. Firstly, I've just got to wrap up very quickly. I'd like to say thank you to all of our speakers. You've been absolutely fantastic, and what a brilliant event this has been. We've had such varied talks and presenters from all walks of life, a life coach, somebody from CareerWise, our staff here and our permanent secretary, and yet everything is linked together in some way, and there have been elements popping up throughout all the different presentations which have been just fantastic. And it does all come down to us being able to disrupt what isn't right and make it better, and that's what we've been here to do. But finally, I really do have to thank the Women in Equalities Network who've set up this event. I'm going to make you feel uncomfortable and make you stand up, please. I know who you are. And you've got to know. I do feel really uncomfortable being here because it should be one of you, but taking all the credit. But thank you so much. This has been fantastic, and it's just the start of even more good work. Thank you.